So, much like we're doing here, right? I mean, we're basically trying to deliver the most engaging experience that we can. You know, great sounding audio. You know, the best looking screens we could get, obviously, highest lumens we can get, all that good stuff. What they see is kind of what you as a company are, right? So that client interface has a lot to do with you guys and a lot to do with me and my team, because they see it and they remember that, so it's important.
I think just being honest, but also being knowledgeable. I mean, again, you guys are the professionals in what you're doing, specifically with AV and video and technical, and we're not. So, you know, be honest with me, let me know what the issue is, give me the solution, but explain it to me too. Don't just be like, oh, something's not working. I mean, I feel like at least if I understand what the problem is and I know, okay, it's gonna take 20 minutes to fix, okay, well then I'm not gonna come bother you in 7 minutes and go, why is this not working? I'll give that time to do what needs to be done. And trust your skills.
Well, hey everyone, welcome back. We are now back on Hop-In for our official afternoon session. And I am joined here by Ryan Finch.
IRL, in real life. Look at that.
In real life.
Joe didn't know what that means.
I had no idea. I had FOMO for a minute. I didn't know what IRL was. But here we are. We're everywhere. We're in Zoom, we're in a window, we're in Hop-In, we're all over the place. This morning, you guys are going to see some replays from what we worked on this morning. We had Ed Willick here. Ed was working on audio for hybrid, and he had an excellent demonstration. So make sure to go back. You're going to see that. That'll be loaded on the replays in just a little while. But really a well thought out system for how to handle sound in the room, sound online, and to be able to communicate back and forth. Because that's really the name of the game in the hybrid side, is communicating back and forth. That's why we're doing all this. We also got to hear from our friend Seth, who was with Analog Way. And he did a full demonstration of their particular, we actually have a new box sitting right here, of their, I think this is the Pulse 4K. And we've used the Pulse and ICOS and the Ascender products from Analog Way for years now. Everything rock solid, excellent support. Seth and the entire team have been fantastic to work with. So we appreciate his time too. So please go back and watch. And Seth is going to be in his booth. So if you're on the Hop-In page, just go scroll it down a little bit, go to Expo, and Seth will be there. I'm pretty sure at 1:30, but the other guy is going to tell you the schedule. But Seth is going to be there live. So any questions you have on any of the Analog Way products, just visit the booth and you'll be able to have one-on-one discussion with Seth. Now, Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Since you don't know what's on this paper here, why don't you tell us what's coming up next?
Well, that's a good question. And Joe, I'm actually going to refer over to the Hop-In app, which is in fact a thing that you can use right now if you're on mobile. I don't know if actually is a tablet version of it, but in any case, it is app-friendly now, so I'd recommend that you go take a look at that. And so what I see right here, actually, is that after this 1 p.m. kickoff that we're doing right now, we are going to AVX Live with Kate Westfall, which is a discussion that we had. We had to make an adjustment to our schedule, but in substitution, we had a wonderful discussion with Kate Westfall from Global AgInvesting.
Oh,
Nailed it.
that's good.
Global AgInvesting. That'll be running from 1:15 to 2 o'clock. So please definitely stick around. Check that out. It was a wonderful conversation with really a very bright and really nice person to work with.
Excellent team.
After that, to your point, Joe, the vendor expo is going to be open in the expo area. That'll be from 1:30 to 2 o'clock. So come on back, take a look at some of the content info that our sponsors have put there, and you might even be able to catch Seth live. Maybe not IRL, but you'll be able to have a nice conversation.
Is there
with him.
a remote LL? I mean, how does that work?
No, and this is getting a little over your head in terms of,
I think that was a height
jargon.
joke. I'm not sure. I think it was a height joke, though. Totally
No, I swear it wasn't. I swear it wasn't.
There's going to be a...
That's it, I'm fired. See you guys later. No. After that, it'll be 2 o'clock vMix Virtual Production 201, which is not for beginners, I think is what the 2 means in that.
I think that's what the 2 means.
The 2 means that, and that is taught by our resident expert, Will Austin, who is a total rock star when it comes to vMix. So if you want to learn more about that, that's right. If you want to learn more about that, come on down to and that is going to be a session, if I'm not mistaken.
That is a session.
That will be a session. And concurrently, another session, 2 o'clock, you can come over and see yours truly speak with Nick McElhaney with MacTech Solutions. We're going to be talking about virtual fundraising tools. So, kind of another, flip side. We talked a lot about corporate programs. So this obviously technology and tools that help us in the fundraising space. So that'll be another 2 to 3 o'clock session. So go ahead and click on the left-hand side Sessions tab, and you'll see both of those come on at just around 2 o'clock. After that, 3 p.m., peer-to-peer networking. We're doing a little bit of that. IRL. There we go.
That was good.
But of course, for everyone on the virtual side, Hopin does have a very, very nice integration for creating a virtual networking experience. So definitely check that out. That is from 3:30.
How would I do that?
That's a wonderful question. I'm glad you asked that.
Thank you.
Left-hand side, once again, if you're on the desktop version, you're going to click on networking, and it'll say, "Are you ready?" And you're going to say, "Oh yeah." And you're going to click the button that says, "I'm ready," and you're going to be automatically paired with somebody who might be watching. It could be somewhere overseas. It could be somewhere next door to you. Who knows? Anything goes. Not anything goes. Keep it professional. But we're going to have a nice time. You'll meet some people, you chat for a couple of minutes, and then we kind of round robin, and it'll pair you with somebody else. So that is from 3 o'clock to 3:30 right on Hopin. And after that, a very wonderful session, something I think Joe in particular has really been looking forward to.
Absolutely.
We're going to have a conversation with Tom Conklin from Make-A-Wish. That's going to be 3:30 to 4:30 right here on the big stage. Another IRL going out live from the studio. And then followed by that is the Pirate Lounge. Come on, hang out and chat a little bit further. That's from 4:30 to 5, and that'll really wrap up our program. But of course, Joe, I want to pause for a second because Tom Conklin does represent a very important group to this year's Pirate University. Do you want to tell them about it?
I would love to tell people a little bit about Make-A-Wish. Now, Make-A-Wish, we've actually worked with for years. And Tom would be disappointed if I didn't know it verbatim, the line by line by this point. But they did make changes. But the key is that, we wanted to do something slightly different and not, we've focused very heavily on training, and like we spoke before, not just the actual technical skills, but the soft skills as well, which we had a discussion yesterday with Charisse and Shauna, and really they gave you a whole nother perspective on what's really important at an event. But we also wanted to add in this twist, and we wanted this to have a little more meaning. I think everybody's had a hard 18 months or so, and I know we work with a lot of not-for-profits, and Make-A-Wish has been one of the groups we've worked with for a long time. And just the things that they're doing are just so important in helping children and their families that we thought they would be the ideal group that we could to try to contribute a little bit towards them. So you'll notice a donate text Pirate U number on the bottom of the screen. Okay, and that just brings you right to a donation page. You text 833-562-0429 and contribute, Like, what are you doing with the money anyways? Give it to Make-A-Wish. Let them help kids and their families. Make-A-Wish has granted hundreds of thousands of life-changing wishes to children battling critical illnesses. You know, and they have a friend of ours over there that was actually a Make-A-Wish child that is now running their marketing department. Abe hopefully will catch up with you later. But these are wishes that give families hope through dark times, gives them strength to persevere, and experiences that forever change their lives. If you guys don't know much about Make-A-Wish, we're going to play you a video in just a second. But let me tell you, when you donate, you're giving children renewed strength to fight their illnesses. I mean, that's what they need. We all need a little extra strength. So anything you can contribute, I am sure that they will appreciate. Because we want to try to bring families closer together and, again, unite the communities. And so, you know, it's probably better if we let Make-A-Wish say it themselves. So maybe, Tim, why don't we roll that video so people can learn a little bit more?
What would you give for a child you loved to make their wish come true? To help them fight a critical illness? Just imagine what you'd do. Every single one of us can make the stars align, because when we come together, hope and joy will shine.
Absolutely. Really incredible work that they're doing. It's inspiring to us to be able to support them in their mission. You know, and it's something that just makes you feel good. So please help us help them. And you can do so by texting Pirate U, that's PIRATEU, to 833-562-0429. You can also help support them by purchasing a ticket to this event. So that's another way. And then, of course, the third way would be to go to the online galas site that our partner Nick McElhaney with MacTech Solutions put together for us. So three ways to help and 3 ways to contribute to a wonderful cause.
That means no excuses.
That's right. No excuses.
There's no excuses.
There we go.
All right, that was good.
Thank you. I'll see you later.
We're going to hear more about Make-A-Wish when Tom Conklin comes to join us at 3:30. We'll be right here on this stage. Is that IRL?
That's IRL.
IRL.
Yeah.
We'll come back here. We're going to have a great discussion about leadership and how Tom's been able to help the organization after 20 years. He's going to be retiring this year, and so we thought it'd be a great way to pay tribute to his leadership and Make-A-Wish. But, you know, we do have some other people we'd like to thank while we're on it.
Absolutely.
And before we kick over to our training program, Ryan, maybe you could thank our people who've been involved in helping us.
Oh, wonderful. Well, a big thank you to ADJ and Analog Way, 2 groups that did live demos for us. AV Educate, which that's Omar, right? Omar was with us as well, so all 3 of those. Broadcast USA, Ed Willock, who we saw today. Thank you, Ed. Events to Remember, Charisse joined us yesterday on one of our sessions. Healy Sales, Hospitality Resource Group, Jeff Widgren, MacTech Solutions, Nationwide, Omar Colom, who I just mentioned, Rentex, Wings Unlimited, and Zoom Test Kitchen. Did I get them all, Joe?
Yeah, I believe you did.
There we go.
A special thanks to our friends at Rentex. You know, we have 4 cameras going right now, which our friend Dean is controlling magnificently. And 3 of those cameras came over from our friends at Rentex. So thanks, Ken and John Souchet and the entire crew over there. And I think maybe it's time for us to kick into the next section and go FOMO? No, that's not.
No. Oh my God,
IRL?
we're gonna have to talk about this.
No.
Why don't we go to the next?
BYOB?
Oh, jeez.
No?
All right, this train is going off the rails. Let's go. We're going to AVX Live, episode number 20-something, and that is with Kate Westfall of Global AgInvesting.
I was going to say AG, but you're right.
I did it.
AgInvesting.
Nailed it. So please enjoy, drop us a comment, and otherwise we will see you later on today.
Sounds good. Thank you.
afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to AVX Live. I'm Joe Guilderson, President of Corporate Audiovisual Services. And once again, this is like 2 weeks in a row.
New record.
I'm joined by my co-host, Ryan Finch.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back.
Man, I can't even believe we let you speak in these things. I mean,
Well, I
so
don't know.
good.
I could say the same about you, but
Listen, I don't even know why I'm here. But either way, we are once again in the midst of another interesting time. We've had increases in vaccinations across most of our areas, but we've also had increases in the Delta COVID virus. And in some locations, like we discussed last week, it's very dramatic increases. Fortunately, at this moment, in our immediate market and in the New York area, most people are fairly healthy. They're healthy, but they're very cautious right now.
right.
And, so I think everyone is really asking, well, what does that mean for our events? And that is a daily question, and I think for good reasons. So I don't know if we really have all the answers to these things, but that since it's been such a hot topic, we figured that there's ways for us to cover that each week. And so today we wanted to bring you a real case study of a client who has just gone through a similar scenario with really very successful results all around. But, Ryan, before we get started, maybe you want to remind people how to get involved and be a part of this?
That's right. Just like always, like, comment, share, subscribe, please. All the above, wherever you're watching. YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. If you can show us a little love, show some support, that would be much appreciated. Helps us keep this going. And of course, we're doing this every Wednesday, 1:00. So, you could set it in your calendar. You can remind yourself. We're not going anywhere. I might not always show up, apparently, but you get something. So, again, please show us some love. Drop a comment on whatever channel you're watching, and we'll answer whatever questions that you might have live, and we'll bring you right into the program. How's that?
So
Is that good? There you go.
That was really good. You actually hit all 3 points today. That's really good.
Usually it's like 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but I got all 3.
I mean, 25 episodes in, you've got it nailed now. I mean,
Perfect.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, listen, should we get into this and
I think we
talk
should.
about today's guest? All right. Well, let me tell you about today's guest, Kate Westfall. Kate is the COO in charge of the AgInvesting division for HighQuest Group, overseeing the team responsible for the successful execution of global AgInvesting, or GAI, and AG Tech Nexus events worldwide. Kate runs point on efforts to communicate with our community, engage thought-provoking speakers, drive revenue, generate innovative content, and create new products and experiences for the conference series and GAI News. Prior to joining HighQuest, Kate worked as conference director in charge of agriculture, water, and infrastructure investment events for IIR USA, which is an Informa company. Before that, she was managing director, marketing and events with New Seed and Advisors, where she oversaw the planning efforts for the groundbreaking Agriculture 2.0 conference series. Kate graduated with a BA from, I don't want to say this wrong, Lees McRae College in North Carolina, and a master's degree in food culture and communications from the University of Gastronomic Sciences in Bra, Italia, which I think is so interesting. Please welcome Kate Westfall.
Thank you so much, Joe. That last part doesn't even sound like a real thing, but I was there. It did happen. It sounds like a fake school. But yes, I'm delighted to be here with you. And just for everyone's edification, it is AG, which stands for agriculture, and not AG investing. So it's Global Ag Investing, everybody, and you can find us at globalaginvesting.com. Please stop by.
AgInvesting.
And see, that's why you're the communications and you work on all this. Because I'm an AV guy. We work in letters.
Right, you're an AV, not an AG guy. Yeah.
You can see how we made that association.
Yes, I can.
Yeah,
I can. So it's for future. It's ag. Ag stands for agriculture.
Very good to know. See, I've already learned something. That's why you're here.
That's right. That's right. I'm done now. I'm going to sign off. It's great seeing you.
Take care.
That was a short show. Okay, well, we're good. Ryan, I'm turning it over. So let's just go to the most important thing. Tell us about the master's degree in food culture from Italy.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it really is kind of a fake thing, but it was a wonderful time in my life. It was 2008, 2009, and was with 24 other incredible students from all around the world, and just really drilled down on supply chains, branding, and people's relationship to food throughout history, sort of like food anthropology, if you will.
So it's not, you're not chef. You're not like making food.
I'm not a chef.
Okay.
I cook a lot, and I eat a tremendous amount. So I'm very into food, but I don't produce it. But I'm here to support those who do.
Very nice. And Ryan, hold on.
Yeah.
Do we have a favorite plate? I mean, this is hard hitting. This is the hard hitting news.
Right.
No?
Right. Ask me that one again, and I'd like to see that transition again.
Okay. All right. Give me 1 second here.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
So, Kate, do we have a favorite plate to make?
That's very good. I'm a huge fan of venison tenderloin, cooked rare.
Ah, okay. Venison.
Wow.
I've recently actually started my venison diet. My future father-in-law is a big hunter. So
wonderful. That's my dad too. That's how I have access to the venison that I need.
Elusive meals.
Yes.
Well, very good.
Nice
very
hunting
good.
joke. Go for it.
Yeah, that was really great. Thanks, man. So I guess let's just get started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your event experience and then, of course, like the purpose and the history of global ag investing on the ground.
Nailed it. Yes, I would love to. Thank you. So basically, I've been producing events for over a decade now, and specifically for people in the food and ag space, and even more specifically for investors who are interested in putting some dollars to work in food and ag. So basically, GAI is owned by HighQuest Group, which is an advisory and consulting services firm that focuses specifically on the sector as well. So we're very deep knowledge base in the company across the food and ag supply chain. So we also produce events like Women in Agriculture and the Organic and Non-GMO Forum. So there are things outside of the investment realm, but specifically Global Ag Investing started in 2009 after the financial crisis. And a lot of investors were looking for a safe place to park their money that would, be a little less volatile than the stock market experience that they had in the year before. And so they came to HighQuest and started asking, can you get us some education and get us up to speed on what it would take to invest in farmland? And that started 2009. We doubled the next year. We just kept building a lot of investor interest in the space. And they really broadened out their interest. Once they got that baseline knowledge about farmland, they started looking at ag tech. They started looking at private equity deals. They started looking at ways to broaden their portfolios along the food and ag supply chain. So that's something that really helped propel the conference forward. As they were learning more, they wanted to learn more, and that's been great for us. And so that's basically how we got started and how we are where we are today.
It's interesting. I've never necessarily thought of agriculture as safe money, but I guess you think about it from supply and demand. Everybody needs to eat, right?
That's right. There will never not be a need for people to produce food, and there will never not be a need for arable farmland. And so I think when I say safe money, and I'm not suggesting that any of you listening go out and put your money into agriculture. That's not why I'm here.
I'm not a financial advisor.
But I think a lot of the investors at the time were wanting a tangible, real thing to own, where they had been, having these liquid investments in the stock market, and that came crashing down on their heads. They wanted to own something tangible, and that's when farmland became a really good place to look. There are other ways to do that in traditional real estate or infrastructure deals, but farmland became an area of interest, and now that has just grown and grown.
Wow, that is very cool. Now, so for this particular event that we worked on together, in general, who's the audience and where are they based geographically?
Yeah, so what we did together in July, Joe, was our flagship event, and that has always happened in New York, usually New York City. What we did this year, for those of you who don't know, is we went to a country club and held the conference outdoors in July. Which we'll talk a lot more about. But it's always been in a hotel ballroom in New York City for the last 13 years. And so what we did was a little bit different. But our audience really for this particular conference is very international. We get a lot of Australians, we get a lot of Canadians, we get a lot of Europeans. Middle Eastern investors often will come to either this show or our one in London. So it's a very broad audience in a typical year. We have regional events in Tokyo and London that are smaller than the US-based flagship, and so that's a different geographical footprint and different audience breakdown. The majority at the New York event is always US-based, but very spread out across the country. A lot of people in the I-states, a lot of people in California, Washington, Oregon. So it's very spread out across the country. But the investor base, which is why people are coming, is largely based in the New York area, and then we do have a lot of Californian and Canadian investors who usually make the trip. Obviously, this year was a challenge because there was really no international travel at all.
Okay. So I was actually just going to ask you, because we talk a lot about on this show how one of the advantages to all things virtual is that we kind of can cast a wider net. We can expand our reach in many ways. So would you say that was the driver, is eliminating the travel for the choice to go hybrid? Was there more to it?
So there was a lot to it, Ryan, and thanks for the question. I think that what we had to do in 2020 was, the complete shift virtual. No option for being together. And for a conference that is set up to build those relationships between asset managers and investors and industry people, because these are some of the largest landowners in the world, a lot of service providers and industry people want to be in that room as well. But when you're talking just about the investor asset manager relationship, that's really hard to do, especially if it's a new relationship or a new first time meeting. It's really hard to do in the virtual event context. And so we got by and we made it happen with 3 virtual events on the global AgInvesting side in 2020. We did 6 overall in the company. There was Women in Ag US, Women in Ag Europe, and the Organic Non-GMO Forum, usually based mostly in the US. So we did 6 as a company, and that was a major just shift in everything we had ever known about how to produce an event. And we learned what our audiences liked and what they didn't like about that experience. And so we knew we needed to, if we could pull it off, we knew we needed to get together in person. It's to provide that connection point, because there's a lot of trust involved in writing those checks and making those relationships. And so we knew we needed to do it if we could do it. So we sort of jumped in the deep end. In December, we announced that we would be live in July. So it was a leap of faith, and the facts changed on the ground every week about what we would be able to legally do and what we wouldn't. But we kept pressing on, and people were excited, and we had a lot of support from the industry to make it happen. The reason that we needed to also provide the hybrid experience was, as we just said, the people around the world could not get there, and they still needed to be included and represented. And so the best way to provide that was to allow them a way to sign on online. Obviously, time zones are really tough when you're dealing with a mostly online international audience. So we learned some things there, but and just had to deal with people are not going to always be logging on live. They're going to be watching it later. They're going to be choosing their own adventure, basically. But that's why we needed to do it. If we had been a solely US-based conference, we would probably not have chosen to layer in the hybrid element.
That's interesting, just that thought alone.
And it's not true across the board in the company.
Right.
Like Women in Ag, who deals more with a US-based audience and more industry people, they had a lot of corporate travel advisories and they just weren't going to send people to their live events. But they had a wonderful time online. They had a very different experience with the virtual only aspect. They had a lot of great success and really good feedback, and the women were really engaged and participating in all the networking things and using the tools available to them. And the global AgInvesting audience is just a bit different. They weren't using the tools. They weren't scheduling meetings through the online conference provider. They were seeing who was there, sending them a note, doing their own Zoom, and they didn't want to do the sort of what we're doing now, the Brady Bunch networking. It just wasn't popular with this particular audience. That's why the most critical thing for any event planner is to know their crowd and know what's going to work. And so that's the only reason I say we probably wouldn't have layered in the hybrid, is because it just wasn't everyone's favorite. They just want to be together. So I think it just really depends on your group.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we're definitely seeing that depending on the group, everybody's experience is slightly different. Mm-hmm. But you do need to know your audience. I think that would apply no matter what type of event you're going to hold.
Yeah.
Or where you're going to hold it.
Right.
But I guess just to kind of take that next step. All right, so you guys decided on a hybrid. You knew the audience a little bit better. You said, this group really likes to be together. Obviously, we have to adjust to time zones and deal with the international audience. We have to have some sort of online component. But I guess I look at it as there's probably different intentions for each group. Mm-hmm. So let's look at the in-person audience first, the people who are inside the tent. What were the intentions for them, for their experience?
Yeah, so knowing that they haven't been able to have these times together in a long time, we were looking to make it a really warm experience for them, almost like a family reunion environment. We had a lot of soft seating. We had a lot of nooks and areas where they could pull each other aside and have a chat. We tried to do different kinds of giveaways than we typically had in the past, because the event was so different than anything that they had ever experienced with us. And so I think, providing a golf outing, because we were at a country club, and that was different and new for them and very popular. And I think, also really having to read them up until the very last moment about what they were going to be comfortable with. I mean, again, our timing in mid-July in New York State was absolutely perfect. The virus transmission was quite low. The guidance was wear a mask if you're unvaccinated, and otherwise you should be fine. So we got really lucky. Obviously we provided hand sanitizer and all of these things. And there were a couple of people who were in masks, but literally I'm talking about two. And the rest of the 350 people who showed up in person were all quite comfortable hugging. It was like COVID was dead at the time. And so they also were willing to, we have a lot of sponsors who get a private meeting space to set up these one-on-one meetings with investors. And we had originally planned for that to be sort of a carnival style tent setup with private tents. And, as we got closer, we just kept gauging with them what they would be comfortable with. And all 11 of them ended up wanting to take a room inside the building, which is the clubhouse at the country club. So that was interesting. Just every single one of them was, vaccinated and comfortable to take indoor meetings. Again, that was just of its time. That was like a very special moment of time. And so we were able to just let people do what they felt comfortable doing while providing an outdoor experience if that was what they chose.
Right. Well, there's a couple of interesting insights from that. piggybacking on a somewhat traditional event format in the golf outing. I mean, that's something that already exists. It requires you to be in person. So there's an element of it that it just makes sense to be there. And then B was, you had mentioned that getting really lucky. Now, obviously, we ended up getting very lucky, but we didn't know we were going to be probably when you started planning this, right?
Absolutely not.
So would you say you started in a direction and then continuously engaged your audience to feel things out and kind of flesh it out as it went?
Yes, absolutely. Gauging the audience, gauging, specifically our sponsors who are very important to our success, making sure they were comfortable and knowing what they were, signing on for. I think also, we were just glued to all the reports every day.
Right.
When's the next group going to be eligible for the vaccine? What are our numbers? What is the transmission rate? I mean, what is the indoor gathering rule? Because we were in an outdoor tent, if we had to keep 3 of the walls down or 3 of the walls up, that would have been an indoor venue or an outdoor venue. But if we had to put them down because of weather or anything, that was an indoor venue, and that was a different number of people we were able to have versus if it was if the sides were lifted. And so, that was all weather dependent based on what the rules were for COVID. So it was a fascinating process and just a sort of tear your hair out one too.
Yeah, well, and I know that we have a question on this on deck as far as some of the challenges, but before we get into that, how about for the online audience? What were some of your intentions and thought process for their experience?
Yeah, so that was really hard because like all of our in-person guests, we were really excited to be back in person too. So it's easy to get wrapped up in that energy. And it was very difficult for me to figure out how to try to convey that same kind of reunion energy to the people at home without just making them feel sad they can't be there.
Right.
But, what we knew from our crowd, again, this goes back to just knowing their behaviors, was that they weren't going to get excited about a special online networking event. And they weren't going to get excited about, the way that we made the content in full blocks rather than clicking into each session. I think thinking about their time and ability to multitask while they're sitting at their computer. I'm sorry for everyone, that is not obvious to anybody else, but between each break, we did one live stream block rather than have each session be its own live stream. And for the people at home, there was a benefit from that in a couple of ways. One, they could sort of set it and forget it while they're doing other things, and they can listen to what's going on. And they didn't have to keep going back and clicking back in. And it was a benefit for us because we were never on schedule at this event. And I'm going to talk about that in some of the challenges. But I think, empowering the people at home to be able to use the same Q&A tools as the people on site, using the app to ask their questions of the speakers to make it, an engaged live experience. We thought about that a lot. For me, I knew that none of them wanted to really participate in the way that they were having to participate. And so just trying to make it as engaging and as fun from a content perspective and, educational. And then, just do the best we can to make sure that they felt seen when I was on the microphone or whatever. I think, I did a lot of, and for you at home, speaking directly into the camera to try to make sure that they felt like they were acknowledged. And I, again, without trying to make them feel like they were missing out too much on what was happening, because there was such a killer energy in the live event.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny too, because some groups, I think, especially early on, but even continuously, we've seen them sort of misunderstand what they're delivering in a virtual setting. And they have this excitement. They're like, oh, they're going to love it. They're going to be excited about it. They're going to do this. And then they're like, oh, people didn't do what I wanted them to do. Yeah. And it became almost like you have to not necessarily lower your expectations, but recognize the situation more than anything else.
Absolutely right. And I think that had a lot to do with the software that we ended up choosing for this year. You know, in 2020, we used a really high level, lots of bells and whistles, all the functionality, everything, you know, in the virtual platform that you could ever dream of. And then, you know, you go back and look at your stats and your reports and you realize what people are using, what they're not, what they are engaged with and what they're not. And really compare that down to a different provider, which is what we ended up doing, to just the basics. And again, that all goes back to knowing your crowd. But basically, they needed a way to watch the live stream, and they needed a way to see the sponsors, the speakers, and the attendees. That's it. And so that's really what we provided with that for them this time, and just sort of cut away all the noise that we knew from experience they weren't engaging with anyway.
Right.
Yeah, no, you guys were running it as two separate events. I mean, that's the reality. And I think that was one of the things that was a differentiator for as we were looking how you were preparing your event. Because in general, I think most of our clients have started just one direction, and then whatever the other one is kind of just an add-on that they didn't really want to do, but they kind of had to, whereas you didn't do that. You know, you started with really the mindset of, all right, we need to reach two different groups.
Right.
And I think that's important. Now, I am sure that this was not as easy as it sounds. So what did you find were like your biggest challenges with producing this kind of multi-level event?
Yeah, there were plenty to choose from. And I think, you know, just the easy one that everyone can probably acknowledge is technology. We had some remote speakers, you know, who woke up really early in the morning in Australia to give presentations via Zoom, which we then funneled into the feed in the tent. And we had some issues with the third-party vendor that was providing the virtual event. So some of our sessions got cut off from the people watching at home. And, you know, you just hate for that to happen. But it's sort of inevitable. And I was telling Joe and Ryan earlier that one thing that I've experienced in the past year and a half, and I hope that all of you have too, is a tremendous amount of grace and patience and good feelings and understanding that not everything is always going to go perfectly when it comes to technology and different people's internet connections. And we were on a couple of very hot days and our generator blew at one point. Luckily, we got everything working back online very quickly, and that happened during a break, which was lucky. But, you know, little things like that you just can't plan for. You try to over-plan as much as you can, and then something is going to go wrong. But like I said, people have a great amount of patience for these technological blips. And we were able to provide them with everything after the fact that they might have missed during the stream cutoff. So I think that was a challenge. The heat was a challenge. And, you know, just thinking about, so we had the sides up on the tent. We had fans, industrial fans going. You know, how is that affecting the people at home when they're listening to the content? Are they hearing the fans? You know, these are all the things I'm freaking out about back in the back of the room. And so I just think being in a totally different kind of a venue was a huge challenge from a live event perspective. And then the technological aspects that are piled on top of that for virtual. I mean, you guys set up the most brilliant AV setup I have ever seen. We kept taking pictures of it because it was epic. It was like, do you have a picture of the table, Joe? Do you have a picture of the AV table? Because it was serious. And
there he goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
A big footprint, huh?
Yeah, you can see all that was necessary to achieve success. And the team was just amazing. And luckily, I also have an amazing team that knows what they're doing. And so it just came off so beautifully. But I think that was a massive challenge in just being outside of our element a little bit, like running power, having to do the generator, having to get different internet and, you know, all of these things to try to make it work, which we did. And it looked fantastic. And now I've gotten totally spoiled on LED screens, everybody. I'm ruined for life, I think.
Oh boy. Well,
but that was
it's
another
fun-
challenge,
Right.
that we
Yeah.
had to choose those screens so that people could see them in the sunlight. And so it's just all these little things that I never would have thought about.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, look,
it's funny, Ryan, if I could just
Yeah,
mention
go
one
ahead.
point on that, because a lot of times people sometimes don't take our advice on those things, so because
true.
as we were planning, I'm like, there's no way we're going to see this. Like, it's just, you don't know. It's unpredictable. It could have been a cloudy day.
Right.
And we would have been happy, but your guests would have been terribly unhappy.
Yeah.
And so there's just so many variables. But you guys did take the advice. You did listen to it. And ultimately, we're really pleased with the results on it. So
Yeah. I mean, it came out just beautifully. Luckily, we found the right team to work with. But I think, when it comes to those challenges, we felt in very good hands of dealing with them. I would say just another challenge that I did not expect, and I think every single person needs to hear who's thinking about doing a hybrid event. I keep saying how excited people were to see each other, and that is a fact. They will not come back to the tent. Or to the room or wherever you're having the event. They're not going to want to come back. They're going to want to keep their meetings going. They're going to want to chat. They're going to want to have beers together. They're not going to want to come and listen to the content. And you need to get them on the stage because the people at home have a schedule and they're waiting for you to start. And I found that really tough with getting a live audience back into the room to listen to a speaker. Knowing that the at-home audience is just sitting there waiting. So I think tent beer. Yes, I tried everything to get people back. I invented tent beer. I brought ice cold beers into the tent to try to lure people out of the sun to come back into the tent to listen to the last block of content. So, I literally tried whatever I could think of, and the tent beer was mildly successful.
It seems that way.
Helpful.
Yeah. I'd follow at that point. But Kate, it's funny because you pointed something out that frankly not everyone understands, is that there are so many variables, and the heat and outdoors has their own set of challenges, and the tents, and we haven't started talking about internet yet, and that's something I won't bore the audience with, but people want to know, like, there's nothing that could possibly go wrong. That's just not reality. That's not the world we live in this. And if you approach it from that, standpoint, you'll have a lot better of experience. And also, to that end, having people who can respond to the things that come up is really important. And it's not just on our side. It's on the venue side. It's on the client side, to be honest. But one thing I'm curious about, which came in from the audience, was sponsors. What, at least in your experience, what's been their feedback like? Obviously, we deal with a lot of challenges. Everyone deals with challenges. But what's the sponsor perspective, at least, that you've seen?
So a lot of our sponsors are asset managers that are trying to get visibility specifically for the purpose of raising money. And so when we had to take everything online, they sort of grimaced and said, okay, fine, let's do this. Let's give it a shot. But honestly, they were over the moon about the event in July. They could not have been happier. I think we had a few remote sponsors who probably did not feel that same happiness. This hasn't been voiced to me, but I just kind of can pick up on these things. And any person who was there physically and picking up on that energy is just ultimately going to have a different experience than the one who's at home and not able to get it. And that has to be okay. That's a choice that they're making. That's why it's probably less expensive to participate in the online version. We're not feeding you. We're not, giving you tent beer. So it's a different vibe. And so I think the sponsors, from the perspective of the hybrid, knowing that there were also international investors that were watching from home, we're very happy to get the extra visibility for the people who weren't able to join in person. And the people who were sponsoring from afar, we're hopefully happy to get the visibility in front of the people who were attending live. Would everybody have been happier to have been, in person with at least one representative from their firm? Yes.
Sure.
But by giving, a lot of the stuff that we did online is extra to what the sponsors have ever gotten before live in terms of reporting or who visited my page. There are lots of add-on benefits, even when doing a hybrid, that, we've never been able to give to the sponsors in a live event. Like, I don't know how many people stopped by your exhibit table. No idea.
Right.
But I know how many people clicked on your link, So there are things that we can provide to them in terms of visibility and eyeballs that we haven't ever been able to do out of this kind of a system.
Well, your point is well taken, because we've had that conversation a lot, that if something is very content-based, online works.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Online works for presentation material and for
Absolutely.
webinar type of content.
Absolutely.
And the reporting, you can't compare, but you don't get the energy. So the networking and people to people and peer-based events, you can't replicate that.
That's right.
Online can't do that.
That's right.
Other ways to communicate, and you can still make new friends, but it's not the same energy.
That's absolutely right. And I think, as I take away what I learned from this experience, it also has to do with sort of critical mass of people. So in our smaller regional events, I'm thinking of maybe doing, and you just alluded to this, like take the content part and make that, a day. And then for the people who are able to be in person, do some meetups, do some networking events. I don't know that I would try to do such content heavy days and mix those in with the networking experiences. Like I may do one day of content next time and a day of networking experiences, so that because it is a beautiful model, and our webinars have been wildly successful over the last year and a half. People respond well to that style when they're trying to absorb information, but if you're trying to make connections, it's harder. And I think that there are ways to dovetail those in maybe a different way.
Sure. Well, it's something I often say is when we're talking about hybrid and what should we do, how should we structure the program, when you create you can watch two type of experience, it doesn't necessarily create that energy, kind of like we're saying. When you give them something different, good but different, that's where you start to create some opportunities for yourself. And Joe, to your point about networking, I think the virtual networking and the social aspects clearly were a development of necessity, right? But they're super awkward. And it's hard to make it not that. And of course, given the choice, I think most people would much prefer to do those things in person. So separating the experiences, I think, is the resounding takeaway there.
I think so. And, we tried to provide some of that energy with making it like, a TV program with a live studio audience, right? That's basically the vibe that I was trying to give it. Yeah. But I wish we had had a little more of that, because there were some times, where the camera might pick up on the fact that there are nobody in the front two rows and they're all out on the lawn having a beer. And, it's just like, that doesn't feel, very, energetic from a camera perspective if you can't see all the people enjoying and listening. So I was kind of thinking laugh track might have been a wise choice. But I think that, if you're tight on the stage and you're getting that live presentation feeling, it is different than watching, just a library of Zoom presentation. Mm-hmm. But it was really difficult to maintain the timeline. I just want to stress that to everybody again, because if you've got people who haven't been able to be with other people other than their families for a year and a half, 2 years, they're going to get excited about small talk, and they're not going to be that excited, I think, to sit in the room and listen to really long blocks of content. So either trim them up or, find a way to lure them back as best you can so that you do have that energy in the room. It's important for the speakers. It's important for them to feed off of that, to then feed it through the camera lens too.
Yeah, so it sort of goes both ways, right? We're concerned about creating the right experience, obviously in a virtual setting, but that certainly goes for in person. We joke around that, especially in the broadcast world, we are sort of competing for attention, right? We're not competing with Netflix, because if you're working from home, it's like right there,
That's right.
So the kind of thought process is like, how do we engage them? How do we keep them there? But I also, referring back to your original point, knowing that they're going to do other things, I think still is important, but keep trying to pull them back in, right?
Right.
Well, no, I mean, I think you learned a lot about this, and that's why we wanted to have you on here, because, and your audience very well, and that's also a major differentiator, because a lot of people only have surface level knowledge.
That's true.
Of their clientele. I mean, unfortunately.
Well, we are incredibly specialized, and that's not normal. It's not something that a lot of people enjoy in terms of their whole firm focusing on one sector and then having subsects of that company who focus completely on different areas, like the investors or like the agribusiness people. So we are lucky in how deep we are in this community. And I think they're lucky for that too. I would say,
as I was going to say, we got a comment from the audience. Obviously, we're lucky to have people like you working on these things.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
And Ryan, just in case you didn't know, it's AgInvesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I learned that. I think you did too.
I definitely did. Thank you.
Another thing I would say, just in terms of challenges for anyone trying to do this and thinking about it, one, we were talking earlier about, watching the policies and watching how many people can you have indoors, and how many, what is the vaccination requirement? What is the testing requirement? If we did an event in New York City tomorrow, every single person attending would have to be vaccinated. Am I checking that? Is the hotel checking that? We just don't know how any of that's going to shake down. But another difficulty is things, and when you're thinking about contracting, if you're doing, a room block, if you're doing attendee giveaways, if you're doing, you need to order food with the caterer, planning for events right now is very difficult in terms of projections on numbers. And so that's just another thing that I would caution everyone about. Make sure, and also right now supply chains are a little bit messed up, and so you want to wait as long as possible to put in orders, but at the same time, if you wait too late, you're not getting your stuff. And so I think that those are challenges that we've never had to deal with before. We could really easily model how many people we were expecting live, how many hats we needed to get made for people, how many burgers we need at the reception, just like all those things. And it's a different world of planning, because there are so many people doing a wait and see, that even if you've got an event 2 months from now, 5 months from now, it's dicey to know, how people are going to behave and react and respond. Right.
And we are still hoping to get lucky. There we go.
That's right. I think the most important advice is just get lucky. Because if you land in that perfect window of time with the best AV team, and your speakers are all feeling really game and everybody's excited to be back together, it's going to turn out beautifully.
It's going to turn out like that.
Oh, look how happy we all are.
Everybody's so happy.
Yeah, it was great.
Hey, Ryan, you don't have one of these, do you?
Oh, there you go. Joe's big on the selfies on site, meeting with the clients and creating that relationship. So there you go. Proof in the pudding.
Okay, all right.
And the woman in that picture with me is Sarah Lynn Pepper. I'd like to give her a little shout out. She has a degree in stage management, which for all of you in event production, if you can get a stage manager on your team, it's what you want. She is a genius, and she makes everything, I think, working, especially with AV crews. She works very closely with them and provides a very good run of show. And so I just want to give her a shout out, because she made everything work too.
Shout out to Sarah. There you go.
Yes. No, Sarah Lynn was excellent.
Yeah.
You guys have a great team, though. I mean, that's the bottom line.
We are incredibly lucky, and Carrie Russell, shout out to her for finding you guys. All around we've got a really good team.
Well, but that's all part of it. I mean, our job is to try to help you guys and communicate to the audience. And there's a lot of steps along the way. And I think you guys presented the information very well. And you said it's a little bit in flux, so, and that's true. It really was right up until 2 weeks before, maybe a week before.
Yeah.
But,
right.
I think having those conversations so far ahead and kind of setting the stage and really walking us through what you're trying to achieve, that's pretty important for a production team to understand. And,
Absolutely. And I'm super grateful that you and your team were willing to put in all of that pregame time, because that's another thing I haven't had a lot of experience with in terms of dedicating the time to really make a cohesive plan between the AV crew and the event crew. I mean, I really, that was a new experience for us. And I think, again, like we are with the LED screens, we're going to get spoiled with that.
Yeah, the pre-production, we joke around that so often in this business, all the work for us, for the most part, happens like that day. Whereas now in a hybrid and constant flux situation, that pre-production really ends up being where the key work happens. Not to say the on-site stuff isn't important, but it really is just as critical. You're totally right.
Yeah. So I was very grateful for that, and it made all of the difference. And feeling just like the investors and the asset managers have to build that trust relationship. I really feel like we got the chance to do that too. And so we felt, very comfortable in very good hands. Come what may, it's all going to be great.
Well, I think the idea of working together on something for a common goal is really what you're trying to achieve. And, that doesn't happen with every group. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes you're the hired help and you're just there to do your thing and mind your business, and then you go home.
And they don't get invited on the show.
They do not get invited on the show. And I got to tell you, they don't have tent beer.
They don't have tent beer.
That's all I'm saying. No, but you guys really went about it the right way. And, I want to be mindful of your time. I just have one final thing before we wrap up. Any other tips, for people asking about how to hold a hybrid event?
Yeah, I mean, I think it took a little while for me to get my head wrapped around it after having done the totally virtual ones. I was just like, how is this all going to work? How are they going to see? Like, at one point we were even like, are the speakers on laptops on the stage? What happens? How does it work? And so I think my biggest tip is find the right people to work with. And I know that sounds like a plug for y'all, and it kind of is, but I would say I was able to see, because of examples that you could give me, and you guys were doing hybrid before it was a necessity. I mean, you guys have been live streaming events for a while before COVID ever hit. And so I think that gave me a great deal of comfort that it wasn't something that you just, scrambled together in the last year to figure out how to do it. And then when you were able to show us concrete examples of like the frames and the lower thirds and all of the things about how the viewer was going to experience it, which is just something that was really hard for me to wrap my head around, I think that was incredibly helpful. And I would say my other tip for hybrid is just, you don't need as much content as you think you do. You need to provide the education you're here to provide to the people at home. But I think trying to over-cram a program is one thing that I've seen both in just plain virtual and in hybrid. If someone is at home, like Ryan said, you are competing with Netflix, you're competing with their email inbox, you're competing with almost everything. Giving smaller chunks of really high-value content is, I think, the way to go.
I think that's an excellent point, to be honest, because sometimes people go too long on things, which we're trying not to do today, but that is part of it. People try to just jam it all in there, but it doesn't play out as well, is the reality.
Right. It gets rigid.
Right.
You take away from that peripheral exchange, the tent beers, you're dragging people back. No, sit in the seats because we got the stuff going on. And, so it's a well-made point. Absolutely.
Ryan, you got to tell me if you're going to bring up tent beer.
Sorry, you did have the banner. I wasn't ready for that.
All I mean, 25 episodes, we still don't have it down. You know, that's why
maybe
you keep
26.
working on it.
That's
Continuous improvement. That's what we're shooting for, Kate.
That's right.
But
That's
listen,
right.
I don't
We
wanna
can
tie
always
you
be
up.
better.
We can always work on new
Right.
things. That's all. But Kate, thank you very much for all your
Yes,
time
thank you.
today.
Thank
and
you
for all
both.
your efforts and insight.
So
Because
good to
you
see
really
you
put on a good
again.
event.
Likewise.
And hopefully, you can get moved in nice and calmly and smoothly before the fall season.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're hoping for a swift resolution of the Delta variant, and hopefully, more people are getting vaccinated. And we have high hopes we'll be able to do our international events. But at the very least, hopefully, we will see you April 4th through 6th, 2022, in New York at the Sheraton Times Square.
Well, then there you go.
like that
We're
very
very
much.
familiar with the Sheraton. Excellent. Well, listen, thank you again, Kate. We're
Thank
going to wrap
you.
up the program here so we
All
can make it
right.
under the hour. You know?
Thank you both. This was fun.
All right,
Kate.
excellent. Well, I got to tell you, that was pretty amazing, right? Real life experience,
Yeah.
going through real challenges, how they were solved, how they thought about it ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what we get asked all the time. It's what should we do? And you know what? There were times where Kate and her team were asking the same questions, and they had to pave ahead. And it seemed like everyone was pretty happy for the most part. So hopefully you're able to take something from this. And of course, thank you, Mr. Dardano. We appreciate it. Joe, what do you say we wrap this up then? Huh?
I think we wrap it up. Just one final, thank you to Kate and the entire team at Global Ag, especially our friends Carrie Russell and Sarah Lynn Pepper, who were excellent to work with. They have a phenomenal team. Everybody check out their website. If you're into agriculture, I mean, we've already seen the comment, agriculture is a pretty big deal. You may want to go to the Sheraton event. Let's invest.
Right. That's right.
This is the time. Don't take my advice.
I am not a financial advisor. I'm glad
I'm
you're
not
ready for that. That's great.
And let's take us out.
Okay, well, like always, thank you for watching and joining, and please come back next Wednesday, every Wednesday, 1 o'clock. And while you're at it, if you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you may be watching, like, comment, share, subscribe, whatever it is to show us some love, we very much appreciate it. And of course, if you have any questions, drop us a comment, and of course, we'll try to answer it live, or maybe we'll do a whole topic on it next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. We don't know. We're making it up as we go. How's that?
All right.
Is that good?
That was phenomenal work. Phenomenal work.
Crushing it today.
the only
That's what
thing
happens
is,
when I show
Ryan,
up 2 weeks in a row.
Remember, you still don't have one of these. That's all I'm going to say.
I haven't been on site at all lately, but I'm gonna get some client selfies. You just watch.
All right, very good. Well, thank you, everyone. Ryan, let's head home.
Hasta la vista. Take care, everyone.